Okay, so this is our activity analysis project using the jumping wheel by Ryan, Haley, Gian, and Elizabeth. So first, here is a picture of the obstacle course that we had for our patient. And just a short description of what we did. We sat down with a patient and we showed them a picture of a pattern of shapes, and we had them say the shape order back to us and then drive the jumping wheel through the obstacle course to the shapes in the correct order. So a few things that this worked on was naming shapes and colors, sequencing and memorization of the pattern, which we did orange circle, pink triangle, and blue square, visual scanning of the room and obstacle course to find shapes, driving of the jumping wheel through the obstacle course to the shapes in the correct order, and then use of the jumping wheel and its capabilities like driving, turning, high jumps, and short jumps. And here is our video. Today we're going to be working with the jumping wheel, and we're going to have you follow this obstacle course and find the shapes of the pattern that I'm about to show you. Okay, so here's your pattern. Can you repeat it for me?
Orange circle, purple triangle, and blue square.
Okay.
Circle, triangle, square. Okay. And circle first. Circle.
Yes, good job.
Here's the triangle. Alright, Lewis, you want to go on that side and catch it this way? Now it's the square.
Okay, good job. Now can you bring it back to speed? Okay, so that was our video. And then before we did the intervention, we did an OT evaluation. So we developed an occupational profile and we came up with assessments that we would want to do prior to the jumping wheel intervention. So our OP was over LP. He is a 56-year-old Vietnamese male who is post-CVA of the right basal ganglia. He has left-sided weakness and left-sided neglect. He also had a decompressive hemicraniectomy performed after admission into the hospital. Prior to the stroke, he was living in a single-level home with his spouse. He was independent in all self-care and ADL activities, and he has no known past medical history. He's also employed as a mechanic. His other responsibilities included driving, home management, participating in leisure activities and hobbies, and social participation. His interests included gardening and tending to his greenhouse at his home, as well as preparing meals with his homegrown herbs and vegetables. He valued meaningful time with his wife, including the preparing of the meals together. His left-sided weakness is a physical barrier to his participation in ADLs, ADLs, and leisure activities. His single-level home with no stairs within or outside of the home and his walk-in shower with no raised edge to enter will be a support to his engagement throughout the home when he is discharged. He does get distracted when his wife is in the therapy and becomes too involved, but the spousal support that he receives from her is really important to his recovery, and the over-involvement is a part of LP and his spouse's Vietnamese culture, so that was to be expected. After the stroke, LP became impulsive, and that presented a barrier to his recovery, but he learned self-talk strategies from speech therapy, and that supported his improvement in that aspect. He did not report any temporal or virtual supports or barriers to his occupational engagement. Per LP and his spouse, they had a goal of him returning back to his prior level of function, but the OT set a goal of minimal assistance with transfers, and a supervision setup level of ADLs were set for LP.
And some assessments that we could conduct prior to intervention would be the Canadian Occupational Performance Measure, the 9-hole peg test, the grooved pegboard test, the Lowenstein's Occupational Therapy Cognitive Assessment, and the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. The COPM helps us to develop an occupational profile along with the AOTA template, and this helps us assess 3 areas: self-care, productivity, and leisure. The 9-hole peg test lets us assess finger dexterity and fine motor coordination, and this helps us assess the ability of the patient to grip and handle the controls. To assess visual motor coordination, we can use a groove pegboard test, and this helps us assess process skills like initiating, continuing, sequencing, terminating, and gathering. The Lowenstein's Occupational Therapy Cognitive Assessment helps us assess cognition, vision, and perception across a wide range of cognitive tests, and the areas assessed are orientation, visual perceptual psychomotor abilities, problem solving, and thinking operations. And then lastly, the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. It can help us assess 8 areas, so visual, spatial, and executive skills, naming, memory, attention, language, abstraction, delayed recall, and orientation.
Object properties include for the jumping wheel, smartphone/tablet compatible with Parrot software, Wi-Fi capabilities, and Bluetooth, detachable and rechargeable battery, micro USB cord for charging. Space demands include outdoors on concrete or in a field. Indoors on hard surface, wheels do not have enough traction when operating on the carpet. Open, unobstructed environment is recommended, along with adequate lighting. Social demands will include the use of the jumping wheel, which can be done alone or with a partner or with a group of people. Sequencing, timing, and patterns. This can include charging the drone battery, which takes about 30 minutes. Use of jumping wheel has to be planned for 10 to 20 minute period. The battery of the phone has to be charged adequately to match the operation time of the jumping wheel. The phone has to be paired with the jumping wheel. If needed, an obstacle course has to be organized or prepared. Client factors will include, firstly, specific mental function. That would include attention, memory, perception, thought, high-level cognitive skills. For global mental function, that would include consciousness, orientation, energy, and drive. For sensory function, that would include visual function, vestibular function, proprioceptive function. For muscle function, that would include muscle power, muscle tone, muscle endurance, and lastly, movement function, control of voluntary movement.
For performance skill requirements for the client, they will need different process skills and social interaction skills. For process skills, they will need to be able to inquire about the jumping wheel and the allowed types of movement, initiate the task of operating the jumping wheel after instructions are explained, handle the phone or tablet in hands while controlling the jumping wheel, attend to the movement of the jumping wheel about the room without getting distracted and looking away, searching for and locating obstacles throughout the room that they will have to be overcome, noticing and responding obstacles or walls relative to the jumping wheel. heating wheel movements appropriately and successfully navigating through the pre-established route or obstacle course, continuing throughout the task until being told to stop, inquiring about the potential accessories that can better the jumping wheel, and inquiring about the cost of accessories versus buying a new drone. And for social interaction skills, the client will need to regulate emotions when frustrated while learning how to operate the jumping wheel, take turns sharing the jumping wheel with another client, family member, or therapist, gesticulate excitement appropriately, disengage with the therapist or other clients when concluding the session, turning towards the therapist and making eye contact when instructions are being given, regulating impulsive behaviors throughout the session using self-talk strategies, asking appropriate questions regarding the jumping wheel and why it's being used during the session, and if the client disagrees with instructions or proper operation of the jumping wheel, being able to express them in a socially appropriate manner. And then to grade the activity up and make it more difficult, you can have the client maneuver the jumping wheel throughout an obstacle course, increase the difficulty of the obstacle course as the client becomes more and more advanced, have the client drive the jumping wheel on his left side to increase awareness of the left-sided neglect, or have them operate the jumping wheel through the lens of the camera only. To grade it down and make it easier, you can use an iPad or tablet for a large control if the phone is too small and difficult, create an obstacle course with fewer obstacles, or decrease the difficulty of the roadmap used.
Okay, and that is it.